Alright, what is up and welcome back to another video. As you can see, we are out here in Chinatown. I've been watching too many of that LC Tony LED guy doing his Trump impression. China. But anyways, we're out here in Chinatown. I don't know if you can see, but all the way back here is like Little Italy. So we're out here this morning. Today is Wednesday. It's a pretty chill day for me, work-wise. So I'm actually heading over to get my hair cut right now, and then I'll spend the rest of the video talking more so about just training mistakes that I made. I have no idea what direction. I gotta sit down and like think a bit more about what I want to say and not script it out, but give myself some bullet points to kind of talk over. And we'll probably spend another chill day at home, overlay some workout footage and all that. But right now we're heading over to this haircut place I've been meaning to check out. It's called 12 Pel. I've been following their Instagram for a little bit, and I love the content that they put out for hair content wise, and actually got referred by one of my in-person clients who's now an online client to check them out. So I actually had never heard about them, but yeah, I'm excited to check them out because I love their content. They seem to know their stuff, and they definitely seem like they're able to cut Asian style hair, which, you know, I don't know if you can tell, but that's the type of hairstyle that I have. So yeah, we'll check them out and we'll see what's up. All right, just finished up getting my fresh cut from 12 Pel. Definitely going for more of the wolf cut look here. So here's the end product, end result. So yeah, not bad at all. I definitely will consider going to them again. So yeah, now we are headed home, and I'm gonna have lunch and then work on some more content stuff. So see you in a bit. All right, what is up? We are back in the casa. So it's actually been a few days since the last scene. I've actually re-recorded this clip a few times, and what I discovered was that I literally just started yapping too much and ended up with like, I think yesterday, I ended up with like 40 minutes of footage, and I'm like, okay, I cannot do this. You do not want to sit through freaking 40 minutes of me just sitting here talking about fitness. Maybe you do, but I think the majority of people don't, and especially if you see that timestamp, it just says 40 something minutes, you're like, I'm not going to click on that video. So figured I'd do this again, and I have actually a timer set here so that I don't go yapping on for too long, and I spend 5 minutes max, or about 5 minutes max, on each bullet point here. So in the bulk of today's video, I'm just going to be going over my training philosophy and how it's evolved over time, and also I'd say the 3 mistakes that I see most people make when it comes to building muscle, building strength, and just building a body that's overall able to function and do all the things that they want to do, and, you know, like have strength, have muscle, but also be mobile, be functional, and be able to take them through life and do most of the things that they want to do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. So my training philosophy in a nutshell, basically when I first started, I was just all about getting big. I wanted to get as strong and as big and as muscular as possible. And then over time, I sort of found that it was a decent goal. You know, I've achieved like part of what I wanted to do, but then I found my body just beat up and just feeling like shit. And so I really wanted to feel better in my body. Like, it was nice being strong and having muscle, but then, you know, if my joints are in pain, if I have pain doing like the simplest things, and I feel myself getting gassed out going up a flight of stairs, even though I can squat 300 pounds, it's like, what's the point, right? I want to be able to feel good outside of the gym. So I thought there had to be another solution. I started educating myself more in anatomy and physiology and all that kind of stuff, and then I found myself just in the boat where I am now. And how I train most of my clients is just, first and foremost, we do focus on strength, muscle, and aesthetics, but also at the same time, we have a heavy focus on quality of movement as well, focusing on range of motion, focusing on mobility, having them focused a little bit on like athleticism and stuff, so that, you know, not only do we have a nice body, not only do we have a six-pack, have some nice arms, but also our body can function the way that we want it to. We can go and take on spontaneous sports. We can, you know, run up a flight of stairs. And, you know, especially here in the New York City subway, if you see your subway coming and you need to sprint to it, you're able to do that without just feeling like gassed out, feeling you're dying. So yeah, so that's kind of just my training philosophy in a nutshell, and how I train clients nowadays, and what sort of problem I help people solve. So there you go. And so going into the first point here, so
number one, so training like a bodybuilder when you just want to look good and move well. So top mistakes that I and my clients make is that we've only focused on show muscles, so like only training on stuff like your chest, your shoulders, your biceps, and you tend to forget about the antagonist and the opposite muscles, which leads to muscle imbalance, and muscle imbalance can lead to injury, can lead to chronic overuse of specific joints and muscles and stuff like that, and then of course like muscle imbalances can lead to injuries because your joints and bodies isn't properly aligned with and all that. And then also along the lines of that, when you only focus on show muscles, you're not doing the necessary health and longevity stuff. So like mobility is important, stretching is important, but then you start to neglect these things because you're only focused on the aesthetic. You're only focused on the stuff like, okay, what will help me look good? But then you neglect all the stuff that, hey, actually outside of the gym, you feel like shit because sure, like you get a nice chest pump, but then you leave and like your shoulders feel like crap and you can't do basic things, and you want to go like play pickleball with some friends and you're like, oh man, my shoulder's bothering me. It's like, no, that just sucks, right? You want to feel good as well as look good. Like there's no point. I think looking good is just like it appears that you're good on the outside, but then deep down you're like, oh man, I feel like crap. Like that's certainly not a good feeling. And then along the lines of that, knowing that you're not a full-time bodybuilder, so why are you trying to train like one? So stop taking advice from these jacked, off their mind bodybuilders. It's like, yes, there is proof in the success in a little bit, but also at the same time realize that these people are doing this for their full-time jobs. Like these people can dedicate their life to working out, to meal prepping, to every single little thing. Meanwhile, you have a full-time job and you're trying to balance this fitness nutrition thing. So it's like, take their advice with a grain of salt, right? Like focus on like, okay, what are the things that you know that they're doing well that follows the principles of building a nice body and building muscle and building strength, but also at the same time, it's like, what are they doing? What other things are they doing that's like so extra that it literally doesn't make sense for you and your lifestyle? And then the last thing here is like chasing pump and sensation rather than focusing on what actually moves the needle. And what actually moves the needle is focusing on good mechanics, training close to failure. And my 5 minutes are up, so I'm going to wrap up this point here. And so chasing the pump and sensation, which is like you're just focusing on moves that like, okay, this feels really good in my biceps. Meanwhile, it's like you're not focusing on full range of motion. You're not focusing on training close to failure. You're not focusing on adding weight to the bar over time. And then you realize, hey, like I feel my biceps, but then it's like, why aren't they growing? Why aren't they getting bigger? Why am I not seeing progress in the right direction? It's because you're not focusing on the basic big rock principles that I just listed in order to see the progress and results that you want. So yeah, that's point number one. And then point number two here, start the timer again. So mistake number two is chasing random exercises instead of mastering the basics. And I first and foremost, I will say like social media just lends itself to you doing a bunch of random BS because you see it on there and you're like, oh, that's cool, that's new. I've never seen this before. No one has done this before. And then obviously the video, it's like, this guy jacked. And so obviously, or this guy's jacked, or this girl is really, really fit. And you're like, man, they look like they know what they're doing, so I should take advice from them. It's like they have the proof right there, right? But meanwhile, it's like you have to realize that this exercise is whatever this person is doing. They might be doing it for like one exercise out of their entire routine. Meanwhile, it's like the other 5-6 exercises that they're doing, they're all really the basics, right? They're squatting, deadlifting of some sort, pressing of some sort, pulling of some sort, doing some curls, doing some extensions, and doing some lateral raises, or just some basic stuff that you already know. But then they tend to focus on like, oh, this is the one thing that you should focus on. And then so you go and take that and you're like, you just run with it and you just do a bunch of that. And you're like, why am I not seeing it? It's because you're majoring in the minors and you're focusing way too hard on the things that move the needle. Again, they move the small rocks that move the needle maybe 5%, and you're totally missing the mark on the big things that actually move the needle and drive progress and drive results. So instead of focusing on what's cool and what's new, focus on mastering the basics. And then you can feel, I like to think about it as like the 80-20 rule. So like 80% of your regimen should contain, I like to call it the boring basics, because it's boring because it's stuff that you probably already know. Like I tell my clients all the time that I'm not trying to sell you some secret. What I do in my coaching, it's not some brand new secret that I'm like, hey, try this fancy ass new diet, or hey, like look at this like cool influencer exercise that I only know and I only came up with, and that's gonna get you magically get the results you want. It's like, no, I'm selling something that's pretty basic, and a lot of stuff is probably stuff that you already know, but it's about the execution portion of it. Like when I coach people, it's about, hey, why aren't you able to do the things that you always say that you're going to do? Why aren't you able to meal prep? Why aren't you able to eat less takeout? Why aren't you able to get yourself into the gym? Why aren't you able to follow these exercises and push yourself and get stronger? It's like we really dive into like the whys behind why you aren't doing certain things and then addressing the solutions. And that's how I think coaching should be done one-on-one. It's not necessarily about, hey, like, oh, custom tweaking programming like this specific because you're a special snowflake. It's more so about everyone struggles with different things. So for example, I have a few clients where they're generally following, like, they don't have the same exact program, but it's generally the same skeleton and template that I use to program stuff for my clients. But it's about, okay, what equipment do they have access to? What feels good or better for this person? And what type of exercise does this person enjoy more of? Or this person struggles with this specific thing, or this person has this injury, and so got to pivot around that. And it's like that's how we really like do the customization, and that's how we really address the problems and help my clients like take those progressive steps forward. So it's about doing that. And and again, sometimes it's fun to like change up from time to time, and I do understand that as someone who's been doing this for over a decade now, even I understand that you do have to change up your workouts from time to time because obviously following the same things for years on end can get boring, and then also, like I said, when you do the same stuff all the time, it leads to the increased chances of overuse injuries and all that. So it is a good idea to change things up from time to time. And then for me personally, through my coaching program, that I like to change up my clients' workouts every 8 weeks. I found that this is the sweet spot where you follow a program long enough to see the desired results, and then you can repeat some because it does take your body a little bit of time to actually adapt and to go through the adaptations of building more muscle, building more strength, and form that mind muscle connection before you start adding on the strength and muscle there. So 8 weeks I found is that sweet spot so that you can get these adaptations, but also most of my clients kind of start to get bored around that 8 to 10 week range. So that's where I found is the sweet spot. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, actually a lot of my clients will actually ask for an extension because they're seeing good results, and so they want to keep going. But a fair amount I change stuff anyway just for that sense of novelty. And again, this is where I said that 80-20% kind of comes in, where 80% of the exercises there is I keep them pretty consistent. And when I change exercise, I don't mean like I'm just changing up the program completely. Like obviously we do this every few months, but through the 8 weeks, it's like I might swap out, say, barbell overhead press for dumbbell shoulder press, so that it feels different, but we're still working more or less the same muscle groups. But then you just get that sense of novelty there. And then last thing, so like I said, confusing muscles isn't a thing. You have to follow a progressive and consistent programs because your body adapts to that. And so adapting to it is actually a good thing because you can actually put on more muscle and put on more strength, and your body learns then does the movement better over time. Whereas if you constantly try to switch things up, your body never really gets a chance to learn and adapt to that movement. So that's point number 2 there. And so basically track your stuff, stop switching up things constantly. Doing the quote unquote cool exercise is probably what is detrimental to your progress. So sticking to the same stuff for a fair amount of time, that novelty is good from time to time, but don't try to overuse that too much, because that's probably what's leading when you're jumping from this program and you don't see results, and you're jumping this program too quickly, you're jumping to that, and I like to say it's a lot of times it's not necessarily about what you're doing, but it's more so about how you're doing that thing. So focusing on how you're performing the exercises that you currently have. Are you working at a proper intensity? Are you pushing yourself? Are you tracking your lifts? Are you trying to add more weight and reps over time? And so just doing all those basic things and mastering the basics first before you try and do advanced stuff like what split or how many sets or how many reps and all that kind of stuff. It's like focus on like I said, the big rocks that will help move your progress forward. So that's point number 2. And then lastly, point number 3 here is never training mobility under load. So a lot of the mistakes I see is that people either neglect mobility completely, because I think a lot of powerlifting, bodybuilding, and just strength and muscle based programs just don't do any mobility work at all, or they'll tack on some sort of mobility where it's like, okay, just stretch the hell out of your muscles for 5 to 10 minutes, right? Which it's like there's some direction, but then it doesn't actually again focus on the big rocks and what the actual mechanisms are that causes your body to increase mobility and all the processes there. So with that in mind, so a lot of strength and muscle, what I found is that a lot of, and this is through like both personal experience and also training clients who have some experience under the belt, is that a lot of these strength and muscle building programs, they'll just focus on, say, squat, deadlift, bench, shoulder press, and you'll realize that all these movements just take you through one single plane of motion, and it's always just like up and down, like through that same motion. There's very few, if you've noticed, there's very few typically side to side movements, and then also rotational movements, which, if you think about it, our bodies are able to and should be able to do all these things, right? If you look at any other sport, you'll see that there's some form of rotational component. You'll see there's some form of side to side movement in there. It's just that why does it come to like lifting weights, building strength, and building muscle, that we only get ourselves stuck in this one plane of motion? And that just doesn't make any sense. And again, your body adapts to the stress that you put it under. And so if you're never training these movements, your body's not prepared for that. And so when you go and take on a sport, your body's not prepared, and you injure yourself, or you basically you injure yourself, or your body's not prepared for it, and something just randomly happens. So that's why my clients and I, we follow a much more well-rounded approach. Like, yes, we focus the bulk of our workouts on the strength and muscle movement component, but also we spend the other 20% doing a lot of, I like to call it like cleanup stuff, just like good like housekeeping type of things. So like a lot of like rotational stuff, a lot of like side to side movements type of things. So we're preparing their bodies for, because nothing about life is optimal. Like, you can be optimal in the gym, but as soon as you step outside, you never know what's going to happen, right? Especially if you take on sports. Sports is very unpredictable. It's not like it's just you versus a barbell. It's you against other people doing other movements, and so you have to prepare your body to be able to handle these movements and be able to come up on the fly to manage these quick adaptations and these quick movements and all that. So with that in mind, not training mobility under load. And so that's like, I'd say the biggest problem is like not training mobility under load, and then also not training a well-rounded variety of movements there. And so what people usually do with mobility is that they'll go, do some random static stretching, hold it for like a minute, or not even a minute in some cases. Like, the proper duration, I feel, for proper loaded stretching is 30 to 60 seconds. And, I watch some people in the gym, or I'll ask my clients what they usually do for their routines. And they're like, oh, I'll just stretch a little bit, and then they end up actually only holding a stretch for like 10 seconds and like, oh, feel a good stretch, and then they're done. And it's like, no, you have to hold it for an extended period of time if you want to get the adaptations. So first and foremost, like stretching for a longer period of time, and actually like really digging and pushing into the stretch. Like, a stretch should, I say, if you want the mobility stuff, like stretching should not feel easy. It's kind of like working out, right? If you push yourself close to failure, the last few reps should not feel easy. The same it is for stretching. You should be feeling like you're really pushing into an area or restriction that you're normally not able to get, and that's what will signal your body to actually progress and adapt your body to be able to do that. So doing that, so instead of just stretching, humping foam roller, doing random mobility drills, do actual stuff where you sink into the range of motion, you hold it there. And the best way to do this is by training and lifting in a full range of motion. I'd say that's like the most efficient way to go about it. That's what I have my clients do. That's what I personally do. That's how my brain has always worked around this training nutrition stuff. I'm always trying to find the most efficient way to go from point A to point B, because I personally hate wasting time. Like, why would I spend 2-3 hours in the gym trying to accomplish the same goal if I know that I can do it in an hour, right? It's just common sense. So that's the way I like to approach things. And I found, it's just lifting through full range of motion. So in your squats, make sure you squat all the way down. This is just some few examples here. When doing lat pull downs, make sure to really go up and pull yourself into that good lat stretch. When you're benching, really make sure to sink down deep in that stretch. When you're shoulder pressing, sink deep down to that stretch. And just loading your body into these very deep stretching ranges of motions, that's what's going to drive mobility. And also you'll find that it'll be pretty cool to be able to build some strength in that area, and that's what builds resiliency in your joints as well, when you can like slowly load those areas in over time. And so basically just loading into that. And obviously this caveat here, I have to make this disclaimer that like, obviously I'm not saying to just go into the gym tomorrow and just like load up a bunch of weight and just completely like sink super deep into your range of motion and stretch and like destroy your body as a result, and you're like, and then you start blaming me. No, I'm saying wherever you are now, progressively push yourself into more and more range of motion. You're gonna find yourself really restricted at first, and you're gonna find yourself less restricted over time, and less, and finally you have more range of motion. This is exactly what I do with my clients, again, to keep them on pace. I make sure that, hey, we're pushing into the point of discomfort, but we're not pushing so much that we're injuring ourselves, we're pushing into pain, etc., and all that. We're not going too far into it. And yeah, like I said, basically coaching is just about like having a proper progressive plan in place and knowing how to pace yourself and progress yourself when it is the right point to progress to, say, the next exercise, or increasing the weight, or increasing the range of motion, and measuring out the tolerance for our bodies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is pretty much that. So I'll just wrap it up and saying, the big three. So again, the mistake number one was, training like a full-time bodybuilder when your job is not a full-time bodybuilder. So focusing on that 80-20 principle of 80-20% muscle building, strength stuff. The other 20% should be your housekeeping stuff with mobility, stretching, joint stuff. For me personally, focus on like doing some extra wrist and elbow work, because that's been a problem area for me. For you, could be like your ankles, knees, hips, etc. And then number two is, instead of chasing random exercises, focus on mastering the basics. And then again, 80-20%. So 80% should be your basic foundational strength muscle building items, and then the other 20% should be your, you can have fun with it. You can incorporate some movements, you can change it up, you can incorporate more mobility stuff, like I said, but really the bulk of your training should be the boring basics. And point number three here is training mobility under load. So again, you can accomplish, this isn't even anything extra, mind you, too. Like, you can incorporate some extra mobility stuff, but a lot of times I just ensure that my clients are doing exercises properly and training through full range of motion, so that we're actually pushing into the tight areas, and that's how we get more mobility over time without actually like spending 30 minutes humping a foam roller and stretching the hell out of our muscles, and why you go back to being tight and not seeing the progress that you want. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the video here. So yeah, hope that has helped you a little bit in sort of dissecting your training and seeing where you fall short and that kind of stuff. So but yeah, let me know in the comments below if this video has helped at all. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well for all that good stuff that helps the channel out, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.